I am just a person who has always loved to run, and I've been doing so for over 5 decades. I ran my first road race in 1975. Over the past few years, I have been dreaming of the day of the 50th anniversary of that first road race because I have a big goal in mind, and that is to run a faster time in the same race as an aging 66-year-old runner as I did back when I was a young 16-year-old high school cross country and track runner. I chose an excellent race to make my road racing debut, the 1975 Falmouth Road Race. Falmouth has been and remains one of the most prestigious road races in the world. Many of the greatest road runners in history have raced on the winding seaside roads of this Cape Cod town. The Falmouth Road Race was started in 1973 by Tommy Leonard as a race from a bar in Woods Hole to another bar in Falmouth, covering the distance of 7 miles along the beautiful Falmouth shoreline. Tommy was inspired to organize the race after watching Frank Shorter win the Olympic marathon in 1972. I was aware of that first race but didn't run it. Originally, it was held on a Wednesday afternoon, and David Duba won it in the pouring rain in 39 minutes and 16 seconds. The next year, a surprise world class runner showed up to race Falmouth, probably thinking he had an easy run along the ocean. Unfortunately for Marty McCory, a largely unknown runner also showed up and won the race. The newspapers referred to the winner as Will Rodgers. We now know him as Boston Billy or Bill Rodgers. 9 months later, Bill would shock the running world and win the 1975 Boston Marathon. I started running 1 month after that inaugural Falmouth Road Race as a cross-country runner for Falmouth High School. There was a major buzz about the 1975 Falmouth Road Race. One author later wrote a book in which he called the 1975 Falmouth Race the start of the road racing boom in America, and for good reason. Running was becoming a popular activity, and everyone wanted to try it. And that 1975 Falmouth was going to be something very special. In those days, top runners rarely raced on the roads. They raced on the track, or collegiately, or in championship marathons. In 1975, Falmouth changed that. Race organizers got the two biggest names in American distance runner to duel each other at Falmouth: Frank Shorter, the reigning Olympic marathon champion, and Bill Rodgers, the recent Boston Marathon champion. All the eyes of the running world were on Falmouth. Which of these two great marathoners would prevail at the 7 mile distance? Having average everyday runners race alongside champion runners who hoped to make the 1976 Olympic team was not an easy task. Runners were not allowed to make money in those days, and running was heavily controlled by the AAU, or the Amateur Athletic Union. This governing body enjoyed their power over national class runners and made the rules to continue to exert their control. One rule was that an AAU runner could not race against a non AAU runner, or they would be tainted and prohibited from making American teams or even be allowed to race. Falmouth got around this by hosting two races at the same time and place: the official AAU race and the non AAU race. It cost $2 to enter Falmouth and $3 to join the AAU, which I did. I still have two sets of results from the 1975 race: one for the official AAU race and one for those who preferred not to pay the $3 fee. We all raced together. Now back to my goal for the 2025 race. If you want to run faster than your 16-year-old self, you have to have a secret superpower. My secret superpower back then was that I was not very talented as a runner. I ran the 7 miles of that 1975 race in 50 minutes and 50 seconds. That's a 7 minute, 16-second per mile pace. I recently heard about a fantastic runner named Gunter Hollis, who at 83 years old ran the Berlin Marathon in 2024, 50 years after first running it. Could he run faster 50 years later? No way. Uh, Previously, he ran the first Berlin Marathon and he actually won it. He won it in 2 hours, 44 minutes, and he joined great champions like Eliud Kipchoge, Kenenisa Bekele, and Haile Gebrselassie as winners of the Berlin Marathon. 50 years later, and in his 80s, there was no way he could run that fast, but he did finish the race. But me, I ran 50-50 in 1975. Can I still realistically beat that time 50 years later? I have run Falmouth probably over 35 times. I lost track, but that 50-50 was my only time I ran over 50 minutes until I had to stop running in 2010, weeks after that Falmouth race, due to a long-standing hip injury that I needed surgery to fix. After surgery, I couldn't run without limping afterwards, and my training logs reflected that. I was running less than 20 miles a year. I would run a mile or two, limp a week or two, and then try again the next month. Eventually, I found ellipticos and trained on those for years and for sanity. But I truly missed running Falmouth. I decided eventually to just jog and run it every year, no matter the pace or the consequences to my body. I would do a few 7 milers leading up to the race and then limp and hobble, but run Falmouth. I did okay those years, but I wasn't a runner. That is until 2022. Something started clicking. I ran more. Never perfectly, but I could manage. Soon I was racing a lot. I would win my age group for many races. Well, there were not many of us runners my age left. I even finished third overall in the New England Grand Prix for my age division in 2023, and it was that year that I ran 49 minutes and 41 seconds at Falmouth. And in the 2022 and 2023 Falmouth and the fall versions of the race, I ran 49:59 and 50:01 over the same course. So, yes, I can potentially run 50 minutes and 50 seconds on the Falmouth course this year. Last year, my hip injury appeared during the race, and it didn't go as I had trained for. So, yes, my goal is doable. But will I be able to do it this year? That is a big question mark. And I will tell you later what I mean. In 2023, I also ran my 50th marathon, my first since 2008, again in Falmouth. After all, I grew up in Falmouth and just about a half mile from the finish line, and I loved going home to run and race again. I had first run the Cape Cod Marathon back in 1980 when it was held at Otis Air Force Base. Later, the course location was changed and it circled Falmouth, but now there is a new course that starts and finishes at the Mullen Hall School, which is the school I attended from second to fifth grade, and it runs on the roads I love to train on. And that is one beautiful marathon course, which even includes some of the same roads as the Falmouth Road Race. I enjoyed the marathon, and it went really well. I especially enjoyed that the course went right by the house I grew up in. As a fifth grade teacher, my students loved hearing about the marathon and their teacher returning to his old fifth grade school playground. And I loved asking them what they might be doing in more than 50 years in the future. Would they ever go to revisit their school? I certainly did not see myself returning to run and then be congratulated by an Olympic gold medalist right at the spot where we used to play kickball. You see, I was the few marathoners that year who recognized Frank Shorter hanging out in the school before the race. And then after the race, he placed the medal around my neck. Frank loves Falmouth so much he now lives there. Frank won Falmouth in 1975 and 1976 and took the silver medal at the 1976 Olympic Marathon to add to his previous gold medal. I got to talk to Frank before the marathon and afterwards as he placed the finisher's medal around my neck. He told me that I was putting him to shame. I don't think so, Frank. You are forever a true legend and champion. When I started running, I would run the roads of Falmouth pretending that I could someday run like Frank. And as I arrived back at my house, I would speed down the road and pretend I was him, winning the Olympic marathon, with the announcer welcoming me back home, back into the Olympic Stadium. I was tickled to run into Frank all these years later as I ran a marathon in my hometown, which would run by my childhood home where I once watched him on TV winning the 1972 Olympic Marathon. And then I was welcomed home by Frank himself at my old elementary school. It was not the first time that Frank had the right sentiment before but the words didn't come out the right way. When I was teaching fourth grade many years ago, I would make a special day of the Boston Marathon with my students. I asked Frank at the Boston Marathon Expo to write something for my class on a board. He wrote, "Don't be afraid to experiment." After signing it, he looked at what he wrote, chuckled, and then said, maybe you better not show that to your class. And he signed something else for them instead. I will, however, say that when I graduated from high school in 1977, I placed a quote that I read in an article or book about Frank. It says everything that needs to be said about my running to this day. Frank said, "To me, the object is not to beat someone, but merely to live up to your potential. If you do, then you will end up winning a lot." That is all I try to do as a runner and as a person, live up to my potential. It was later reflected back at me when a former student sent a letter to the editor about his teacher and the Boston Marathon. So, will I run faster than 50 minutes and 50 seconds at this year's Falmouth Road Race? I doubt it. My potential has suddenly changed. Here is what happened. Last year, a couple weeks before the Cape Cod Marathon, as training was going well, something happened. I did a 20-miler in Falmouth over much of the marathon course. Then a couple days later, I did a speed workout of 20 times 400 meters, something I hadn't done in decades. At the end of the week, I returned to Falmouth and ran the Liam McGuire 5-mile race. I did well and ran another 5 miles that evening. Later that week, I went to the doctor's to look at a blister that had been bothering me on my heel. The doctor noticed I was limping, something I usually do anyhow. She decided to take x-rays just to check. Although I never felt anything wrong with my foot due to neuropathy, my fourth metatarsal had a full break in it. I stopped running for 3 months in order to heal. In January, I started training for my first Boston Marathon in over 15 years. Despite a poor training block due to lots of foot problems, I ran Boston to enjoy it, and boy did I ever do so. And I did finish in just over 4 hours. I was ready to attack training for the big goal of my 50th anniversary of running Falmouth. After school was out at the end of June, I came down to Falmouth to do a long run on the race course. I decided to take a loop around my old neighborhood halfway through and to run in front of my childhood home. And it was there that I lost my footing over a dip in the road and crashed to the pavement. The exact place where I would finish my runs, sometimes dreaming that I was Frank Shorter, winning the marathon. Except now, instead of winning, I was now sprawled out on the road in front of my old house. I got up, ran a few miles back to my car, but the next day, I was in shock. My foot was so sore, I could barely walk. I ended up back at the doctor's, and besides straining multiple muscles around my foot, I had broken my cuboid bone on that same foot. I had broken another bone on 9 months earlier. Ouch. It was back to wearing a boot, and my shattered foot meant a shattered dream. The thing is, I will always find a way, and potential is what you need to live up to. I may not even run Falmouth this year. My doctor says I may possibly be able to walk or jog the race. I'd be happy if my foot is ready to do that. And I think if I do, I will get a new perspective of Falmouth from the back of the pack if I do so. I only know this. Next year, I have a new goal. 51 years after my first Falmouth, I plan to break 51 minutes. Sub 51 after 51. You might note that 51 minutes is only 10 seconds slower than my sub 50-50 I hope to do this year. So yes, I want to still do that. This year, I will also be thinking of earlier renditions of the Falmouth Road Race, and in particular the 1975 version of the race. Just like with today's version of the race that has over 10,000 runners starting and competing, we were also bused to the starting line in Woods Hole. Although in 1975, Falmouth had just over 800 runners at the starting line. Everyone started together. One athlete of note that year was wheelchair pioneer Bob Hall, who had just become the first wheelchair athlete to complete the Boston Marathon. He would start with all of the runners. Leaving Woods Hole, going up the slight hill, um, I recall passing him the throng of runners. Then I remember heading down Church Street towards the ocean and hearing runners screaming to get out of the way as Bob came hurtling down the hill in what looked like a normal wheelchair. I never saw or passed him again. I remember running up Nobska Hill, which is right behind me right now, to the Lighthouse at the 1 mile mark and feeling the thrill of racing on such a beautiful course. Then we ran through the hilly and twisting roads of the wooded section of the course until the ocean re-emerged on Surf Drive. After 5 miles, we swung around Falmouth Harbor past where, when I was younger, I had a paper route. I looked for friends and family at the 6 mile mark, knowing I was getting close to the finish. We ran up Heights Hill and then hit my favorite part, the fast downhill to the finish. I was tired. I had to stay in line in order of finish and was handed a card to mark my place in the race. We had to look for timed results later. I had a hot dog on the ball field where the big party would be every year and where I used to play baseball and fly kites as a kid. Then I walked home and showered before coming back to the finish line to see the awards ceremony. It was a great day, and I mostly remember being very tired afterwards, but wanting to do it again. Now, what happened up front that year? Bill Rodgers led the race for the first 3 miles, but by mile 4, Frank was firmly in the lead and finished in 33 minutes and 24 seconds. Bill finished in 15 seconds later. Jenny Tuthill won the female division in 44:23. In 1973, Jenny, then known as Jenny Taylor, won the inaugural 1973 version of the race. Also of note, 67-year-old former Boston Marathon champion Johnny Kelly finished in 46 minutes and 27 seconds, a time I know I won't beat next year when I will be the same age. He seemed so old when I was 16 years old, but despite his age, I loved his spirit, his love for the sport, and his longevity as a road racer, along with his impressive Boston Marathon streak. I always said, I want to be like Johnny Kelly and keep running, even as I got older. I thought that day would never happen. Well, here I am. It happened, and every mile I run, I still enjoy racing. The Falmouth Road Race is always one of my favorite races of the year. Now I ask you, what is your favorite race or race experience? What runners do you look up to when you were young? Tell me about it in the comments below.